everybody! It's me! And let's talk about Michael Myers. Throughout the many installments of the Halloween franchise, we have seen a lot of different aspects of Michael, but some elements that stand out are his mysterious silence, his incredible strength and durability, and his obsession with killing Laurie Strode above all other victims. In fact, these three things have been consistent through the entire franchise, despite various attempts to explain them away or enhance them. So today, let us take a look at what, if any, deeper meaning might lie within these aspects of Michael's character and see if we can come up with some answers to some lingering questions. Let's get started. So what are some of the things that we know about Michael? Well, he was born into the Myers family in Haddonfield, Illinois. He had a sister named Judith, who would become his first known victim. When he was just 6 years old, Judith was found stabbed to death in the Myers home, and young Michael was discovered covered in blood, holding a large kitchen knife. After this event, Michael became withdrawn and silent, and was sent to live at Smith Esgrove Sanitarium, until he escaped 15 years later to commit a new killing spree. In the original 1978 film, Dr. Sam Loomis was the doctor who treated Michael at Smith Esgrove, and became something of an expert on Michael's behavior. Even in the opening scene of the movie, he tells us that Michael is pure evil and that there is nothing in life that can stop him from doing what he wants to do, including death itself. So Loomis believed that Michael was inherently evil without any kind of cause or motivation. However, over time, some of the later movies did attempt to flesh out Michael's backstory a bit more. The most notable of these additions is the Thorn storyline, which dates back to the sixth film in the franchise, Halloween: The Curse of Thorn. In this film, we learn that Michael was actually the unwitting vessel of an ancient evil curse passed down from an ancient cult called the Order of Thorn. His mother, Deborah, was a member of the cult and performed rituals to bring Michael into the world as their prophesied agent. As a child, she offered him up to the spirits of Thorn, declaring that they now had him, and then killed herself and her husband so that Michael would grow up without anyone to protect him and manipulate him. According to the cult, the curse of Thorn can only be broken by killing Michael and burning his body on a pyre while chanting incantations. Unfortunately, this doesn't work, and Michael is somehow resurrected to continue terrorizing everyone. While the story of the Cult of Thorn has not always remained consistent throughout the series, it does present one interesting way to understand some of Michael's more inexplicable traits. If we accept that he was actually possessed by an evil spirit from birth, it would explain why he was able to kill his sister so brutally without any obvious reason or motive. It would also explain why he seems to possess such inhuman strength and durability, as well as why he always comes back even after being killed several times. In this context, Michael is no longer simply a human killer, but becomes something more like an unstoppable force of supernatural evil, which could be very interesting to explore further in a horror movie. However, there's still one major piece of evidence against this idea. If Michael really was chosen by the Cult of Thorn to serve as their instrument of evil, why did they choose such a young child? Michael was only 6 when he killed his sister, and children typically aren't exactly known for their violent tendencies, especially back in the 1960s. According to the lore of the cult, the leader of the group felt that Judith's death was a necessary sacrifice to bring Michael into the world as their prophesied agent. But wouldn't a much older Michael have made more sense? Surely a teenage or adult Michael would be far more capable of committing brutal acts of violence than a little kid. Therefore, it feels like this aspect of Michael's character was added as a plot device in order to explain his supernatural aspects rather than being part of an actual cohesive story. Let's move on to another thing that stands out about Michael, his obsession with Laurie Strode. On the surface, it may seem like Michael just randomly chose Laurie as his final girl because she was the most popular girl in school and therefore the easiest target. However, as the series progressed and Laurie became more prominent as a character, it became clear that her role in Michael's story was a lot more significant than just being the main protagonist. Over the course of the franchise, Michael has attempted to kill Laurie a total of 9 times, making her his #1 target. And if she isn't around, he will usually go after her friends and family instead. So what could possibly motivate such a thing? Well, there are a few possibilities. First, we can consider the possibility that Michael didn't actually kill Judith, his own sister, but rather defended her from someone else. This is a theory that's been around since the original film. Judith's nude body, and the implication that Michael could have seen her in that state, suggests that she may have been assaulted before being killed. And considering that Michael seemed to have a close relationship with his sister, this is a theory that makes a lot of sense. But why would this lead to him targeting Laurie specifically? Well, if we analyze some of the scenes where Michael interacts with Laurie, it becomes clear that he sees her as a younger version of Judith. For example, in the original film, he sneaks up on her while she is giving a young girl a babysitting lesson. And when he finally confronts Laurie directly, she is wearing a white nightgown similar to the one Judith was wearing when she was killed. Because of this connection to Judith, Laurie becomes a symbolic stand-in for Judith, and Michael feels compelled to treat her as he did his sister, either because he wants to avenge her death or because he feels responsible for it. In this reading, Michael becomes a kind of tragic hero, a lost and confused soul who lashes out at the world because he can't come to terms with his own guilt. The second possibility is related to this idea, but focuses more on Laurie's role in keeping Michael alive. As the series progresses, Laurie becomes more and more obsessed with defeating Michael and protecting herself from him. And her actions in certain films actually help Michael to survive. For example, in Halloween, The Curse of Thorn, Laurie accidentally saved Michael's life when she shot him with a shotgun. In fact, it could be argued that Laurie is partially responsible for Michael surviving beyond his initial confrontation with her in the original film. When Michael tried to stab her, Laurie managed to grab his knife hand and hold on to it long enough for him to lose consciousness and fall to the ground, giving her enough time to escape. In this scenario, Laurie unintentionally prolonged Michael's life just by defending herself and surviving the encounter, which may have angered Michael enough to want to hunt her down and finish the job. So in a strange way, Laurie could be said to be partly responsible for the events of the next 9 sequels, simply by refusing to let Michael win against her in the original film. In this context, Michael becomes almost like a predator, trying to reclaim its prey that got away, and Laurie's attempts to resist only serve to strengthen his obsession. Finally, let's discuss the shape, the iconic mask that Michael wears to conceal his face. At first glance, this mask may seem to be a simple prop designed to increase the creepiness of Michael's character. However, upon closer analysis, it reveals a more sinister truth about the nature of his existence. To better understand this, let's consider the many names that Michael is called throughout the series. In the original film, he is often referred to as the Shape, a word that implies his inhumanity and monstrosity. Other times, he is called the Bogeyman, a figure from folklore that represents primal fears of the unknown. These names establish that Michael is not meant to represent a typical human killer, but rather something more akin to an embodiment of universal fears and anxieties. When we look at the mask that he wears, we can see that it reinforces this aspect of his character. By hiding his face beneath a featureless visage, Michael becomes stripped of any humanity and transformed into a creature of pure evil. In fact, the mask essentially cancels out any possibility of Michael ever having a sympathetic backstory or motivation. It turns him into a projection for our own deepest fears, which may be why he is so effective as a villain. He allows us to confront our own anxieties about the unknown without any of the complexities that come with dealing with a human antagonist. So what does this tell us about Michael Myers as a character? Well, it suggests that he was never intended to be anything more than a symbol of inescapable evil. In many ways, Michael serves as a reminder of the darkness that lurks within our own society and psyche, something that we can never truly escape. Like the boogeyman under the bed, he represents the things that go bump in the night, the unknown horrors that we cannot comprehend or control. Even his tendency to disappear after killing sprees and then reappear years later can be seen as a metaphor for how anxiety and fear can return to us in unexpected moments, preventing us from ever feeling truly safe. There are a lot of factors that can contribute to someone becoming a serial killer, such as environmental stress, abuse, brain chemistry, etc. But ultimately, it is impossible to say what caused Michael to become the monster that he is. Throughout the series, he has shown no signs of remorse or empathy and appears to be incapable of feeling pain or fatigue. There are definitely aspects of his character that make him appear superhuman, so it would make sense that the creators of the franchise left his origins unexplained. After all, part of what makes the character so terrifying is his We don't need to know why he's evil to be afraid of him. Unfortunately, however, The later retcons and reboots haven't helped to clear up the mystery surrounding Michael's origins. If anything, they've only served too complicated. Even the latest film in the franchise, Halloween Ends, tries to tie up loose ends from previous storylines, but it doesn't offer any real insight into what motivates Michael to do what he does. Instead, it simply concludes that his evil will always persist. Perhaps this is for the best, though maybe it is better to leave. Michael's origins a mystery, and focus more on the ways that he reflects our own deepest fears and anxieties. After all, it's hard to argue with the fact that Michael embodies a timeless element of human nature, our instinctive fear of the unknown. Well, that's it for now. What do you think about Michael Myers, and what do you think motivated him? Let me know in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave a like. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.